80% of your success comes from the first 15% of your process. When it comes to marketing on social media, the first 15% of your process is one of the most important. Many times is where people are already sold. So in this video, I'm going to go over that first 15% process so you guys can tweak yours. You guys can get honed in on what you need to do in that first 15% so you guys can convert more. We're going to get started in 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, Tone Fernandez here with Social Lead Hub, teaching life insurance agents and direct sales representatives how to market their business on social media so you can use Facebook and different platforms to generate leads for your business organically. Now today guys, what we're going to be talking about is that first 15% of your marketing process on social media. What does it consist of? How can you get better at it? And how can you go from where you currently are now, where you're barely generating leads, or you're probably harassing your friends and family, or you're out there begging people to become your clients, to the point where you start attracting the right people to you, to the point where they're asking you for a sale and you're easily making money in your industry. Now, I will tell you this is a disclaimer. You still have to work hard. You still have to go out there and be consistent. There is no magic button. So one of the shortcuts I see a lot of people try to take is they try to go around working hard. What I'm going to teach you here today is not to not work hard, but it's to work on the right things so that you know what you're doing. You know, today, in this day and age where there's so many shortcuts and there's so many people trying to teach you the easy tactics, those tactics are either temporary or they don't work, so you end up wasting time following them. The true way, the best way to learn true marketing is to find the essence of marketing. How do people think? What is human nature? What is human psychology? What are some ways that I can go out there and no matter what type of platform or what type of medium or post on social media, I know the essence of how to show up to get people to react to that post. And today, guys, what we're going to go over is this simple beginning 15% of the process. So you guys can learn that, hone in on it. And at the end of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a free training, a training that specifically talks about identifying your target market and going deep on that. So without further ado, let's start with the first bullet point. The first bullet point is pretty simple, is that you have to choose a clear and concise and specific niche. Some call it niche, some call it niche, but you got to get very specific on that. And the reason why is that there are people who show up on social media and they talk about so many different topics that your audience, it doesn't resonate with your audience because you're all over the place. And what happens is you don't build an audience and nobody reacts. So what you need to do is figure out, okay, what industry am I in? And what is a specific niche within my industry? Because one of the things, the big mistakes that I see is a lot of people think that their industry is their niche, and it's not. You got to get specific in there. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, if you're in health and wellness and you want to talk about everything under the sun when it comes to health and wellness, but you may find a niche inside of health and wellness to talk about, keto, or to talk about some type of specific area inside health and wellness. And what happens is the individuals who are looking for that information within health and wellness find your information easier. It's like keywords, right? It's very specific. Like if you were to go to Google, you wouldn't type in health and wellness. You would type in something specific, right? How to lose weight with keto or different things like that. So think about that first 15% of the process is how clear am I in with my niche? And even in my industry, I'm in life insurance. And what I noticed is that in the realm of life insurance, there's so many different topics or type of life insurance to talk about. But when I talk about cash value life insurance, oh man, I get a ton of people who ask me questions and reach out to me. I found that there is a niche within life insurance, and it's cash value life insurance. So get very clear, get very concise with what your niche is so that you have an easy time connecting with your audience. And then number 2, once you get clear and concise on your niche, identify your target market down to the T. Some call it your avatar, right? There's a specific person, type of person that is already looking, that buys, that, they love this type of product so much that you can speak to their soul. When you identify your target market, you identify them specifically, you identify who they are, their age group, the demographic, what they like, what they don't like. And what happens, it becomes easier that you know who you're talking to. When we first start marketing on social media, we start talking to everybody. It's a broad message. And what happens, it doesn't resonate with too many people. So when you first show up, and I'm guilty of this myself, when I first show up to social media, I had just broad content that wouldn't resonate with anybody. But as I started honing in, I started to get more leads and I started to get more clients on social media because people understood my message more. So identify your target market. In some ways to identify your target market is age. Hey, who's most likely to buy? Do some market research. Is it women? Is it men? Where do they hang out on live? What are some of their hobbies? How do they speak? What are some of the ways that they like to show up online? What type of groups do they show up on? What's the platform? Is it mainly Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it TikTok? Where do they hang out most? How do they talk? Who are they? Get as specific as possible when honing in on your target market. The next one is identify their biggest problems. When it comes to marketing, there's two different ways that people respond. There's two different human emotions that people respond to marketing. And it's either a pain, something they're going through, or it's either a pleasure, right? Pain or pleasure. And what I mean by that is when you paint a picture of pleasure, and you're talking to the right target market, it's something that they specifically want. You want to look like this, you want to have a body like this. That specific person is going to react and say, wow, I can vision that. Or when you talk about a pain, right? Maybe your target market is dealing with a pain that they wake up every day and they're saying, man, I hate the fact that I have to do this. I hate the fact that I have to show up to my job. And you come along and you say, okay, I understand their problems. And what you do is you take a piece of paper and you start jotting down all the problems that your target market is dealing with. And the reason being is you have to understand that your target market is scrolling through Facebook, right? And you are competing for your target market's attention. There's so many distractions now, so many people on social media that, what is going to make them stop on your post? What is going to make them stop on your YouTube video? What is going to make them stop on your Facebook Live or your reel? And the best way to do that is you call out their problems immediately. So when you identify those problems, it makes it easy. I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say I'm scrolling through Facebook. Let's say that my biggest problem is I have terrible, let's say I don't sleep at night because I have terrible sleep patterns. And let's say that my desire is to sleep better at night. And let's say that you have a product, service, or something that you offer that helps people sleep at night. And let's say I'm scrolling through Facebook and you call it out immediately. Hey, do you struggle with sleeping at night? And I'm scrolling through and I see that post. I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, wow, this person just called out something that I'm going through, that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. So the chances of me stopping on your post, listening to the whole thing, is very powerful if you call out the problem. So the third thing was identify the problems that you're dealing with. So there's an exercise that we typically do in my industry when I teach marketing in my program is I go through several different layers of the problems that people are dealing with, right? Your target market. So after we identify the target market, we take a notebook and we say, okay, what's the main thing that your product does? And usually people say like, oh, it helps them lose weight, it saves them money, gives them the opportunity to build their finances. And then I say, okay, great. We know the main problem. What are secondary problems that they deal with? And they start naming it specifically. Like they go from being surface level to going a little bit deeper. And they say, man, they can't afford their vacations. They can't take their kids here. And they get so specific. And at the end of that, they have a whole notebook filled of different pains. And what that does is it takes us to point number 4. It helps them create content that puts you as the solution solver. So when you're formulating your content, a lot of times people on social media, they wing it, especially life insurance agent, direct sales agents. You just go online and just start talking. And they talk about, different topics within their industry. And then it just confuses people. But when you identify your target market, you identify their problems, then your content becomes very specific. It goes from being broad to going very specific into, hey, you're dealing with this problem. Let me give you 3 tips on how to fix that. And what happens is your target market starts to pay attention to you and your brand. So the first phase is you're going to notice more attention on you, right? At the first phase of when you start to tweak and improve your content is, okay, I'm starting to see people notice me, right? Your likes are not going to go immediately up right away because first people start to look at you, right? You get those lurkers and those watchers. Then when you're consistent with putting this message out there, that's technically branding yourself now, right? Because people think that branding yourself is creating a logo, creating a name of a business, and that has nothing to do with it. Branding yourself is, hey, am I showing up as the problem solver, as the person, the solution to these problems out there that this specific audience is having? So once you start being consistent with putting this message out there of different solutions to these same problems that your target market is dealing with, you're now becoming, you branded yourself. And now the second phase of that transformation is the likes and the comments and the shares, and people are, okay, I like this stuff. And then that third phase behind that is now people are starting to reach out to you. Hey, you've been showing up consistently, and I saw your last post, can we sit down and talk, right? And you start getting appointments, you start getting, people closing. And then the final phase behind that is you're so consistent, you've been posting so much, people are liking your content, you start getting even more specific on your content. One of the most underrated things that I see in marketing is that people don't give themselves enough time to adjust, that they find their target market and they start talking and then they give up. They're like, oh, well, I'm not getting the results that I want. But the more that you hone in on that, you get even more specific. You find a niche within the niche. You're like, oh man, I see that these people who like this also like this, and you start going levels deep. And then the other benefit is you start to adjust your content because you see what people like. When you post consistently, you have a target market, you have a clear niche, everything's very specific. You start to make adjustments that you didn't even know you need to make because of the experience, because of the time that you've been posting. You start to realize, oh wow, this audience likes this format, this audience likes that, they like these videos, let me double down on these videos. And then all of a sudden your transformation, your brand starts to come alive. And this is where the exciting part of marketing happens. So just to kind of summarize, choose a clear niche, right? Go very specific. Don't just talk broad. Identify your target market. Get their demographic, their age. What do they like? What do they don't like? How do they speak? Where do they show up online? Number 4 is identify the problems that they deal with on a daily basis, the problems that keep them up at night, the problem that they think about all the time. Create content around those problems and position yourself as a solution. Once you do that, you'll start to notice your brand starts to transform into something very specific. It starts to take off from there. Give yourself that time to post as much content as you can so that your brand can take off. So if you guys have any further questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And if you'd like to learn more of how to identify your target market, I'm going to put a link to a free training here. The series of 5 videos, it's a 5-day lead challenge. And it's basically goes deep in on the first 15% of your process, how to talk to your target market, how to identify your target market. I'm going to go post that, this training here, I'm going to post that in the comments below so you guys can learn more about that. So appreciate you guys for jumping on. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, your success is important to me. Peace.